Hello, I'm Barry the Baron Rowland, and welcome back to the Baron's Lecture Series. In keeping with past requests from those viewers and subscribers who prefer to look at a compilation of a topic and assess it in one video as opposed to the shorter video strategy, I have attached a compilation of the second topic on the Baron's Lecture Series entitled Strategic Planning for Schools and Educational Organizations. Again, if you like any of the information, short or long, I have provided, I would certainly appreciate it if you would subscribe and or click on the like icon. Just a reminder, I am a consultant and I'm available for search or planning projects that you might have. I can be contacted at barryroland4@gmail.com. You can see that on the screen, barryroland4@gmail.com. My preference is a train-the-trainer approach, whereby I can in-service your committee wherever possible to take on each step in the process. This will certainly save budget dollars for schools and educational organizations, since I would be fully active only as needed. It will also develop expertise amongst your stakeholders on site that will be invaluable for future projects that might occur. Hello, my name is Barry the Baron Rowland, and welcome to the Baron's Lecture Series. The topic for presentation will be strategic planning for schools and educational organizations. Strategic planning is cyclical with a timeline for completion of 12 to 18 months. It should move through 4 stages. The first stage, present the issues and concerns. Second stage, future trends and needs. Third, the common vision of the future. And finally, an implementation plan. I want to first of all deal with the present issues and concerns in this video and several to follow. An examination of present issues and concerns is an ideal place to start for 3 reasons. Because first, it tends to be closer than the other steps in terms of the common practice, particularly within school systems and schools. Secondly, it deals with the concrete experience of the here and now. And thirdly, it helps us to work from a base of strengths based on a thorough understanding of present practice. In this video, I will present a wide variety of strategies for analysis of the status quo. They deal very effectively with the identification of strengths, weaknesses, and unmet needs within the school system. I will outline the following: 10 statistics to rate your school, a sentence completion exercise, school survey, 5 critical records for evaluation, what everyone else is doing, open-ended needs analysis survey, school excellence rating scale, a climate survey, indicators of excellence, what is a good school, 10 questions to evaluate your school, and finally 6 critical factors for excellence. The first exercise to assess the present is called 10 statistics to rate your school. Knowledge of the state of your school allows for both corrective and preventative actions to be taken. Changes in statistical data can measure the effectiveness of the action plan, and ongoing monitoring of critical statistics may permit early identification of potential problems. It's important to remember that statistics must be useful and relevant, not gratuitous. It must allow you to do 4 things: identify where problems are occurring and the severity, analyze the interrelationship of statistical changes to determine potential cause, specify the targets against which you can focus, plan, and evaluate the effectiveness of the action taken. You can see from the chart in front of you that there are 10 types of statistical data that'll provide you with the place to start. Scholarship, staff turnover, absenteeism, teacher-student ratio, library usage, participation, critical incidents, discipline, staff service levels, public response. Specific types of data are provided on the following slide. You may have the data on file, you may not. You may have to set up a way to collect and keep it. And trends and patterns, of course, are important. A historical perspective will give a clearer understanding of what today's statistics mean, and points throughout the year will demonstrate if there are patterns or trends. The key is to use this data. What does it mean? What is changing? What is causing the change? What is an appropriate standard? With a quantitative indicator, you can establish either a preferred standard or whittle things to a point that's acceptable. So the procedure is as follows, and you can see the data planning proposal. You review the statistics that are listed here. Then you complete the school assessment data planning proposal, then assign responsibilities and get started. Exercise 2 in assessing the present is called Rate Your School, a sentence completion exercise. Now, this exercise can be administered to everyone who's part of the school. You can use a random selection method, or if your school is small enough, you may wish to involve all staff members and students. If you work in a school that serves young students, you may wish to limit participation to the older portion of the population, or modify and simplify the sentences. The objective here is to obtain reaction data from diverse groups, determine the areas of improvement needed and current level of satisfaction, establish a baseline for future analysis and planning. So, review all the questions, ensure they are relevant to the school. If inappropriate, delete them before distribution. Print copies of the final format, announce the reason for taking the survey, and stress confidentiality, the aim of comparing and contrasting responses. Distribute the survey and ask respondents to set aside 30 minutes to complete. There are no right answers. First thoughts are best, and specify a return date. Assemble data by sorting respondents according to type. Transpose data according to category and by question, and separate responses to each question according to positive or negative comments and count number of positive and negative comments. Analyze the data, the comparing and contrasting, particularly look for trends and issues. Prepare brief analysis of the results, highlighting positive areas and specify where improvements are needed. And of course, thank respondents and provide them with a copy. Now you can see, I'll go through the entire list of school-based questions. You can see teacher competency, student capability, family adequacy, school spirit. And those will give you a very good start in terms of a second exercise you may wish to use to assess the present situation of your school or organization. The third exercise you might consider for evaluating and assessing the present is called 5 Critical Records for Evaluation. The objective of the exercise is to determine the 5 most critical record factors that can be used to evaluate success in your school. To involve staff in the discussion, of course, is the next step, and it's a discussion about excellence and records that will lead to creative determination of factors for research. The agenda on the slide is structured for a committee or staff meeting with interested members. You can go through this and see how it unfolds. The room should be set up in an informal work table structure with the agenda on flip chart paper. At the end, summarize all the data and be sure to distribute to the staff with a request for any additional comments or suggestions. Exercise number 4 you may consider in assessing the present is called What's Everyone Else Doing? This exercise will give you an idea of what planning projects are underway or completed locally and in other schools. It will also give you an opportunity to review successes and failures in other places with projects and learn from others' experiences. The object is to make a list of public and parochial school boards or schools in your area and develop a contact with an administrator at each. Ask the names of key people who are undertaking or have undertaken or are considering planning projects, strategic planning projects similar to the one you may have. Now, there are variations in this exercise as well. You can interview perhaps a local reporter from a newspaper in person or by phone and ask what strategic planning projects he or she are aware of. Read the newspapers, motherboards in schools to see what's going on there. Network with people at conferences. And of course, check with your local Ministry of Education to see what projects they may be aware of. The following gives you an interview guide to the kinds of questions you would be addressing, whichever variation or methodology you use. You can see that on page 1 there are several, there are 5 here, and page 2 there are some additional questions as well for you to use and assess and develop an overall response from whatever source you're tending to use. Exercise number 5 that you may wish to consider in assessing the present is called an open-ended needs analysis survey. The objective of the exercise is to gain a perspective of what needs are perceived in the school system and school, and to begin the process of involving stakeholders in the planning. First of all, select a representative group from each major category of stakeholder. Use a large meeting room equipped with flip chart paper, marking pens, and arrange 6 tables or seating areas and identify each with a card. Administration here, students here, parents here. Ask the group to select a recorder and supply each group with paper, markers, and tape. Also provide each person with a needs survey sheet. You can see the first page here. And give them 10 minutes to complete it individually or independently. As a group, ask them to share their individual answers and record it on the large flip chart paper, and give them about 20 minutes to do that. Post the records and have each group share their results with the full meeting. Note the similarities and differences among group results. Now, there are variations that you may wish to consider. You could conduct telephone and personal interviews using the needs survey sheet. You could have groups meet after the first report to look for themes, or you can follow with a priority ranking exercise. Now let me go through the other questions on the needs survey sheet so you get an idea of what might be there. You also have additional areas of concern, so you can lead people along in terms of some areas that obviously apply to every school and would help some of the stakeholders to be able to put comments down that would be appropriate. Exercise number 6 for consideration for assessing the present is called the School Excellence Rating Scale, a climate survey. You can see the first page here. I'll flip quickly through the other pages shortly. The climate in which a learning takes place is an important factor in judging a school. This exercise presents staff with a method to assess the conditions and circumstances of their school. So you ask individual staff members to rate each question. If not applicable, just circle it with a 0. Encourage staff to make comments explaining their responses, and tabulate responses choosing one or more of the following methods. You can make summary statements on those that are rated higher and others that are rated lower. In another meeting, you can discuss and confirm the responses and plan changes. Following the implementation of the planning, a portion of all the questionnaire can be re-administered to staff to get an idea of what progress may have occurred and has not occurred. Let me go through it. You saw page 1 with curriculum and staff. Here's page 2 talking about students and learning environment. And again, that gives the staff the opportunity who are working directly in the school to give feedback in terms of their observations and perceptions. Exercise 7 for consideration to assess the present is called the Indicators of Excellence. What is a good school? You can see the indicators that are on the slide in front of you. The objective of the exercise is to identify participants' perception of what makes a good school and what are those indicators. Select the minimum of 3 categories from the following and randomly assign each participant 1. Curriculum, learning environment, equipment and supplies, staff, organization and administration, community factors, instruction, and students. Ask the participants to take 5 minutes independently to list the qualities felt to be characteristic of good relationships to the category they have been assigned to. Ask them to go to the same category to meet and gain agreement on the qualities they like. Ask each group to list indicators which can be observed from each of those qualities and summarize the group's response on separate lists for redistribution to everyone. And you can see at the top of the slide, the category assigned goes there, and then you follow through on the questions independently and then collectively work your way into a total response from a group. There are variations. Instead of randomly assigning participants, put their names under a category and following the exercise ask why they chose some over others. So they can choose which category, but put their names under each and let them choose. Once a consensus is reached on what is good, ask participants how they rate their present school. And thirdly, prepare a list of indicators for each category and ask participants to prepare progress cards. In subsequent meetings, action plans can be developed as you examine the progress that has taken place or not taken place. Exercise number 8 for consideration in assessing the present is called 10 Questions to Evaluate Your School. You can see the first page on the slide, and I'll show you the second in a moment, but the objective of the exercise is to determine key elements in evaluating your school and acceptable indicators of these key elements. In a staff meeting, ask half the staff to interview the other half using the questions accompanying this exercise. Ask the interviewees to respond with the first thing that comes to mind and ask the recorder to take it down verbatim. Ask volunteers to conduct similar interviews with custodians, secretaries, members of the community, and parents. Compile the information from each of the groups. Now, the follow-up is important. You can conduct discussions on similarities and dissimilarities of responses, gain consensus on the responses felt to be most important in evaluating each element, and conduct a review of the school at present time to identify strengths, weaknesses, and gaps. You can see here's page 2. So there are a number of areas that you need to look at to consider. Back to page 1. And finally, exercise number 9 to assess the present is called 7 Critical Factors for Excellence. I'll show you all of the pieces to the sections in a moment. But the exercise is similar to indicators of excellence, which we looked at earlier, what makes a good school, but takes a more direct approach in assessing the present. In a planning session, review the statements in each of the categories, add or delete statements to make them relevant to your school. At a staff meeting, explain the exercise, distribute the questions, and ask staff to complete within 1 week and return to a designated place. Summarize the responses and use the summary for further discussion and planning. There are alternatives again. Compare average scores for each category and consider why some have higher averages than others. Survey several schools and compare results. Begin a database of results throughout the entire school system. Ask people to provide 2 ratings for each item. The first would be present practice. The second would be, in their mind, what is ideal. You can see page 1. There's page 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That gives you an overview of all of the various questions and the rubrics that you would use in assessing each of them. The second stage for strategic planning for schools and educational organizations is future trends and needs. No strategic planning process will be complete without consideration of future trends and needs. More than any other organization, schools and districts must be future-oriented. The knowledge, skills, attitudes, and beliefs that are given to students will still be used in daily life and the workforce 50 years from now. The following presentation I will speak about activities for identifying future needs. It will be in two parts. Local trends, providing a number of activities to examine trends in the local community that may impact on a school, and global trends, which encourages planners to look beyond the borders of their schools and districts to identify broader trends that may impact on education. I will touch on the following areas. Part A, local trends, food for thought, key community indicators, sidewalk sampler, rating future needs, a parent survey. Part B, global trends, Delphi project, TAP, TV/social media monitoring. The objective of this exercise is to gather data on future directions and trends in the local community that may impact on educational needs, and to raise awareness of the staff potential and the impacts of future trends and encourage staff to consider these as well as present status when planning change. As a result, there should be a detailed list of local community trends and increase staff and community awareness of the importance of those, and an increased interest in an ongoing review and discussion of future directions. You can see there are 2 pages to the crystal ball process. Page 1 you see here, page 2. First of all, you make copies of the sentence completions that you see on the screen and run extra copies for those taking part. Secondly, calculate how many groups you will have if you divide your participants into groups of 5 or 6. Prepare an envelope for each group that contains the full set of the sentence completions cut into strips so they can be drawn from the envelope individually. For groups of 5 or 6, distribute an envelope containing a full set of the sentence completions, that for each group. Ask members of the group to select a volunteer to go first. Have a volunteer draw a slip from the envelope and complete the sentence. When they complete the sentence, they have the option of adding a rationale or just simply finishing, and pass the process to the next person to repeat the steps. Process continues in a clockwise direction around the table, so everyone has several opportunities to complete sentences. Stop the activity once everyone has had the opportunity, and provide everyone with a copy of the complete list of sentence completions. Ask someone to share particularly good answers, the whole room, and thank them for their participation. Exercise 2 is called Food for Thought. The objective of this exercise is to understand how members of the community feel about global issues and develop a relationship and rapport with community members. You first of all review the questions and interview sheet or revise them as appropriate, as you see the instructions on the screen. You discuss with volunteers the type of people to be interviewed, and it's a good idea to select a cross section. Ask them to make calls in the evening and bring back reports within a 2-week span. Call participants and ask if they will take part, then mail the food for thought preparation sheet you see on the screen immediately after contact. When the areas are completed, collate the data for review. Now I've got the food for thought prep sheet, and you can see as well the questions that go along with it that you'll send out to individuals and you will speak to over the phone. Exercise 4, Sidewalk Sampler. This exercise is designed to get a general sense of the top of the line concerns of the interview population. It's important to practice listening without bias to varied logical, illogical, and political issues that may come forth. It's important to be aware of bias in selection of the population you interview. So try to interview 15 to 20 people chosen from not more than 5 friends and neighbors, strangers old enough to be out of the school system, and not more than 5 students who are not in the staff member's class. Ask for about 10 minutes of their time to discuss questions related to education, and tell them you want to get ideas from people who are concerned about the future of schools. Find a quiet spot, interview people, encourage them to extend their answers. Don't restrict them to yes or no, but engage in as much discussion so you can complete the survey and avoid leading the person that you're interviewing. When you've completed the survey, analyze the open-ended questions for similarities and differences. You can see there are two parts to the survey, part 2, part 1 on the screen, and the scores can range from maximum, minimum, average score that will give you a rough indicator that can be used for discussion. Ask yourself how you personally reacted to responses and on which points. And there are variations, of course, in this exercise. You can select the homogeneous population concerned about a particular issue. It can be all students, only parents, of elementary or secondary kids, random passerbys on the street. You decide. Have several people conduct the same questionnaire in various parts of the city. Compare the results. And you can also add your own issues of interest to questions that are on the sheet. Exercise number 5, rating future needs, a parent survey. This exercise presents practices as perceived by parents that can provide useful information for future planning. The objective is to gain information from the parents to help you with your future planning at the school within their particular community. Asked several teachers to review the questions as you will see on the screen. There are, as you can see, there are 2 pages questions, and encourage them to make them more relevant to the local community. Some may not be. Prepare a cover letter claiming the purpose and a date for completion. Select 5% of parents from each class and mail out the questionnaires. When they come back, tabulate the results, and in a planning session, assess the responses in relation to the school's present situation that's currently not addressed and the order of importance for future planning. The student population in your school has changed in recent years. If it's changed, you may want to administer the questionnaire only to parents of students who have enrolled in the past 2 years. You can hold a follow-up meeting for the respondents to provide them with feedback on the results and recruit them to be involved in future planning sessions. We are now moving to Part B, Global Trends, and I will speak to the Delphi method, often used to identify educational issues. It's a tool for short-term forecasting and very useful for planning and productive purposes. It relies on a panel of experts who are asked to complete a series of questionnaires related to their expert opinions. The objective is to gain consensus from the experts on important issues facing education to ascertain priorities for education for planning in the future. What you will need to do is obtain names and addresses from such areas like the Ministry of Education, presidents of national and international companies, the principals and presidents of universities and colleges, ministers of trade and commerce, energy, mines, resources, education, school principals, trustees or chairmen of local boards, heads of teacher federations. So there are a number of people out there that should be able to give you some good feedback. You prepare a governing letter outlining the process of collecting information and asking questions that you'll see in questionnaire 1 on the sheet. From the responses, choose issues most frequently mentioned. Mail the second questionnaire that you see here, asking the respondents to reformulate their opinions with the knowledge of the group's viewpoints in mind. Ask them to rate the issues and to say briefly the reasons for their choices. Summarize the responses and mail a third questionnaire you see here, asking to review the issues and trends and write comments about their ratings. Analyze the results and review the issues and trends and place them in a high priority for what you wish to do. So again, you can see, I'll go through these again. There's the original, here's one follow-up, 2, 3, so that you've got all of the information. Exercise number 2 under Global Trends, Trends Analysis Program, TAP. During World War II, the process of TAP, it was called content analysis and was used as a way of gathering intelligence information. The use of content analysis continues to be used today. The purpose of the Trends Analysis Program is to review a wide variety of articles in print and in print media for general or global trends that may have an impact on an educational system or school. Because of the massive amount of information available, you really need a committee of volunteers who like to do these things and to share responsibility for monitoring likely publications and summarizing trends that are emerging. Volunteers should be encouraged to review magazines, books, computer programs, television, and any other media that may deal with future-oriented issues. You will find on the screen a summary form for recording relevant trends, and you can see it gives you an idea of where to go, what might be available, the parts, and the summary that you make when you've gathered information and you've written it up and you want to make it available to staff. Volunteers are encouraged to complete these whenever they find an article that outlines future issues or directions that might impact education. These volunteers could have a place on the staff meeting agenda each month to provide any new information they may have found, and also be given a central area where they can place a binder that has a written report where staff at their leisure can read it and absorb it. Exercise 3, TV, social media trends, monitoring the future. Media, of course, one of the most powerful influences on students and society. Careful analysis of programs communicate present trends and future directions that must be looked at for planning purposes. The objective of this exercise is to analyze present trends and future directions as viewed by media and to all stakeholders in the planning process. Participants' comments will be able to be collected on these trend sheets, and there are several here. There are 6. So let me go through. You can see it's a fairly lengthy assessment. Ask volunteers from several groups like staff, students, community to take part in this. They must be able to give you 3 hours of conscious viewing time, which means paying attention to the process and the themes that they're looking at as well. After 2 weeks, collect the common sheets and collate the results and distribute them to the participants. Now, there are variations. Participants can be drawn from homogeneous groups rather than simply some from staff, some from students, some from the community. There can be a focus for a discussion group from these homogeneous groups, which leads to recommendations to curriculum planning or media programming. Participants can be instructed to watch only educational or only entertaining or only informative programming to narrow the field if you wish to do that. The third stage of strategic planning is developing a vision. First of all, you have to consider the data collected already on present needs and future trends and use that as a basis for developing the vision. You need to involve staff members and faculty in the development of the detailed vision of the future school. You need to get commitment to that future vision, and you need to clarify the future vision and make it specific enough to be the basis of a plan. On the screen, you can see suggestions for developing a vision that provide an excellent way to start the process. I'm going to speak to the following areas: metaphors to build a vision, creative imagining of the future, creative proposals, guidelines for strategic issue identification, expanding the vision, and setting priorities. Exercise 1, using metaphors to build a vision. A creative way to begin developing and clarifying a vision of the future is to consider metaphors that might provide parallels to the ideal educational process or the ways that educational staff will work together. Here are some examples as a way of getting started. Teachers as professional consultants, the school as a garden, education as an evolutionary process, educational staff as a crew of a spacecraft, school as a skills bank for the community, teachers as architects of the future, education as an investment, teachers as miners of precious metal or precious stones. or develop your own metaphor and use the spaces. You can see the form on your screen provided. Explore metaphors considering the perspective of the metaphor match with your version of the school, the students, etc. Rewrite some of your insights in the form of bully statements that may contribute to your vision of the school. Exercise 2, creative imagining of the future. The objective of this exercise is to encourage participants to imagine school 20 years from now and to share those creative ideas. Participants on their own or pairs walk around the school. As they walk, they form mental images of the school 20 years from now. Let their thoughts go freely. Imagine the school in the future without being constrained by budget, practices, legislation, or technology. Have them jot down their ideas, feelings, and thoughts as they respond to the questions you see on the attached worksheets on your screen. You can see there are several. Here's a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth. When the walk has been completed, randomly assign participants to groups of 5 or 6 to share their ideas. Ask the group to note on flip chart paper the commonalities and differences of the whole group. Exercise number 3, creative proposals. This exercise provides staff members the opportunity to develop visionary change ideas in a simple written form that can be reviewed and discussed at a later meeting. It can be used more successfully after participants have general agreement on a direction for the future. Review any general visionary statements that have been developed by participants. Distribute the sheet that you see in front of you called Creative Proposals and encourage them to jot down some initial ideas about some proposal or pet project they'd like to consider. Give them 5 to 10 minutes to complete it. Ask participants to pair up with someone else in the room to share ideas and suggest that they spend 5 minutes each describing their creative proposal to their partner. After discussion with their partner, ask participants to spend another few minutes jotting down extra notes based on their conversation. Distribute the sheet entitled Creative Proposal Summary Form and ask participants to take it away from the meeting, complete it, adding more detail and refinement to their idea. Suggest a due date when creative proposal forms should be completed. When the proposal forms are returned, have them duplicated, distributed prior to another meeting where the proposals can be discussed and an action plan developed. There are alternatives to the steps in the process. You could simply distribute the creative proposal form to staff and have them complete them prior to a meeting and encourage them to come prepared and present their proposal to others. Exercise 4, guidelines for identifying strategic issues. This exercise is designed to help a planning group narrow down their vision to strategic issues that will have the greatest impact on their school or system. You post a number of future issues that have been identified around the room on large sheets of paper so that everyone can see them. Explain that many issues are operational rather than strategic. An operational issue is one normally handled in the day-to-day administration of the organization. Strategic issues require more creative approaches and have a greater impact since the group is involved in strategic planning. The goal should be to focus on issues that really do have strategic significance. Use small group discussions to share answers and reach agreement on the scoring. Compare the scores of various issues. High scores represent issues that are likely to have a larger impact on the school or system. Look for issues that have high scores, but are within the power of the group to change or influence. Compile results on the score interpretation summary sheet. You can see that in front of you. And share the data with interested parties, staff, students, parents for additional feedback. The variations to this process would include asking a small planning group to do a detailed strategic analysis using the strategic analysis assessment form and preparing a position paper for discussion, or ask individuals to complete the strategic issue assessment form for single issues and prepare a presentation for the next planning meeting. Exercise 5, expanding the vision. To assess the effectiveness of the vision that is developing, it's helpful to translate it back into the more traditional categories. Each vision will have implications for the organizational strategy that I spoke about earlier. The traditional educational structures are defined on the screen. The key question for each is how they're going to influence the way you deal with developing a future plan. You can see on pages 2 and 3 space to record some of the implications you see for your particular vision and direction. Exercise 6, setting priorities. If the number of recommendations or concerns that identified by your planning group seems a little overwhelming, it'll be necessary to set some priorities. Here's an example of a simple exercise designed to place and put your vision in a priority order for action. The chart you see records a comparative importance of 5 concerns or recommendations, and you can see the steps that are used to develop the information. And of course, here are some follow-ups that you can use for additional priorities and how to record your priorities. The fourth stage for strategic planning for schools and educational organizations is called implementing the vision. Essentially, the objective here is to ensure that the future vision is concrete and relevant to identified needs, to build an ongoing monitoring system that has to consider changes that occur unexpectedly, to develop a detailed implementation plan that begins with things that can be changed, and to develop strategies to work collaboratively with others, perhaps other schools within the district or local schools, and to identify the resources required to implement the vision. There certainly are outcomes. A detailed implementation plan has to reflect a bottom-up approach to bringing about change. You need enthusiasm and commitment by everyone for the plan, clear understanding of and support for the plan by those who are in administration and responsible for providing the resources to get it done, and specific action that moves toward the vision immediately and incrementally. My plan is to outline for you several parts and to give them on the screen exactly as they would appear. I know you have the opportunity to download them or to copy them, and without much comment, I think that's the most appropriate way to go. So I'm going to talk about the following: turning the vision into an action plan, creative swiping, obstacles, match-mismatch analysis, developing action steps, new approaches to innovation, an action plan process, monitoring implementation, and a final action plan summary. As you can see on the screen, turning the vision into an action plan requires setting objectives because they help in attaining the goal and the vision. A goal is the destination. The objectives are the general travel plans. You need to get there. And you can see from this, and again, you can copy this, there are several ways to remember the characteristics of an effective objective. And you can see here, we use the acronym SMART: specific, measurable, attainable, results-oriented, and time-limited. Swiping means to use someone else's material or ideas for your benefit. And certainly when you acknowledge that or get permission, it's quite acceptable. You can see here creative swiping techniques again. Please copy if it's appropriate. There are 2 pages. You can see the worksheet and the instructions and objectives. Underlying obstacles. And you can see there are 3 sheets. I'll show them to you. There's the first, the second, and the third. Once again, feel free to copy these if you feel they're appropriate. An underlying obstacle, as you can see, is the main thing that's preventing the vision from moving ahead. Not something wrong, but just a challenge. And it's a window where action is needed to overcome, to move things forward. Using mismatch analysis, again, 2 sheets. There's your worksheet, and here's how you lay it out, and the objectives and the agenda that you put together. It's a simple strategy and helps to identify critical areas for change. Developing action steps, and you can see there are several parts to this particular task and handout. Here's page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5. There are 7 steps if you utilize this strategy. And essentially, what you're trying to do is to develop your action steps as a result of a thorough analysis of the situation. And really, you're using a force field analysis process. You can see on the screen some new approaches to innovation, some we've talked about. It's a good idea to summarize. There are 2 pages here. Here's a page that you would use for your personal notes if you're working through any of these particular strategies. Head back to page 1 and you can see them listed. We've talked a little bit about some of them, and we will talk again about a couple of others. But it'll give you a chance to do a summary and then decide what it is you want to do and how do you want to carry it forward. The next few slides will show you the actual planning process and how to develop a plan. And you'll see here that in phase 1, and there are a number of, there's phase 1 slides and phase 2. The early steps are expanded into a number of activities. Once issues are clarified, step 3 to 7 are much more straightforward in putting together the actual plan. As you can see here, monitoring the implementation is critical and essential to monitor checkpoints that ensure you're on target. Plan and deadlines are being met, and you can see there's 3 parts to this in terms of the slides. And of course, here is your action plan overview that you can prepare a number of as you put in your steps and who's responsible and when it will be completed. So here is a final sense of it, and that will give you a better idea of what's happening. Now, I would suggest that if you have questions or comments, you can reach me at barryroland4@gmail.com. I'll repeat that again, barryroland4@gmail.com.